Hi, everybody. Welcome to our latest episode of Let's Be Direct. This is a LaneAxis podcast in which we talk all things trucking, supply chain, and the future of the industry, which, as we always say, is going direct. I'm Andrew Rivera, head of marketing for LaneAxis, joined again by LaneAxis CEO and founder Rick Burnett, and special guest this week, senior member of our own team, Elvis Rodriguez. He is our Chief Project Officer and one of our lead engineers. And Elvis, before I further introduce you, I want to say why we're having you on here, because of our topic today, and that is artificial intelligence, and specifically artificial intelligence as it relates to the supply chain, and specifically as it relates to the LaneAxis platform. So Elvis, I'll get to you in just a sec, but Rick, I want to start with you because artificial intelligence has exploded in the zeitgeist of the world, really. Ever since ChatGPT came out last year, it's just become this buzz phrase that everyone is using, everyone is jumping on. There's startups racing to build their whole business models around artificial intelligence. LaneAxis is not one of those companies, right? LaneAxis is leveraging artificial intelligence as a tool in our tech stack. Is that accurate? How would you describe LaneAxis's use of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I mean, we're utilizing, artificial intelligence to make an intelligence of data, right? And so what we're building is the core features of a data set. So shipper, manufacturer, contracting, negotiating, and connecting and paying direct to the trucking company, the smaller independent guys most of the times, but it doesn't matter. It could be any size of trucking company, but the relationship is established and the data sets that are established in that relationship is the foundation. And then in that foundation of the contracting, negotiating, and then in the load level, right? Because every part of the tendered load is confirmed, signed to a driver. So it's the purest form of the data. Load level configuration of prior to load pickup, you want it in 4 hours, you want it 6 hours, the shipper can set that at a load level. And then it gives that real-time information at shipment status update, and it can be load level, sensitive of the freight. If it's a high value cargo and you want to have it every 3 minutes, or if it's something that's, every 15 minutes is fine, you can configure that. And then it has, arrival times, loading, unloading time, in-transit information, proof of delivery at the final destination. So that's the core data sets. So the intelligent parts of the data is going to come from the network because now them attributes can be starting to become intelligence. For an example, if he picked up the load and he is 50% full, it can start to alert the network with AI because we know all the attributes of his available capacity. So yes, artificial intelligence is going to have a huge play in the direct network in the years to come.
But to be clear, it's just one component in our tech stack. This isn't a gimmick, right? This is one component of many components in our very expansive tech stack.
Well, it's just a software feature that is capabilities like, smart contract and which is an immutable ledger and other smart software capabilities that we've built in, which is future proofing today of where the network's going, is utilizing the capability so we can make intelligence, the data intelligent as the network grows and expands.
Okay. All right. With that, let's bring in Elvis. Elvis, thanks for joining us, buddy. We certainly appreciate it. I'm going to ask you to give us a little... Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask you to give us a little bit of background about yourself. But what I really am looking for is for you to explain in kind of layman's terms. Let's set aside supply chain and trucking for a second. Tell us your background and then explain in layman's terms, what is artificial intelligence? How does it work?
Sure. I've got about 15 years in information technology and, from the basic programming language, I'd gone through artificial intelligence. I got an advanced degree from the University of Austin in artificial intelligence. And now when you talk about, basic general term of AI, the term artificial intelligence was coined by John McCarthy in 1955. And it has progressed a lot from there. So in a broad sense, there are three types of AI. One is a narrow AI, which is task oriented, a general AI, which is capable of doing the same things as human does, and then there is super AI, which exceeds human intelligence. So right now in the industry, we've got a lot of artificial intelligence models, which are narrow AI and general AI. Super AI is still in development.
Okay, thank you for that background. And I'm glad you mentioned that artificial intelligence is really not a new technology. I mean, I think of the supercomputer HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and that movie came out in the late 60s. So we appreciate that perspective that really this technology has been around since the 50s. So let's turn to the use of AI in trucking. Now, out of all our applications here at LaneAxis, in my view, and I'm not an expert, you're the expert, you're more of an expert than I am, the ability to identify available trucking capacity in real time, to me, seems like the most important application. Let me ask both of you, what do you guys consider the most important application, or is there one most important applications? Are they all equally important? Elvis, we'll start with you.
I would say, it depends on the user, right? Now, if it's a carrier, then capacity is something that's important for him. If it's a shipper, building his carrier network is important for him. So artificial intelligence can be used with a recommendation engine where shippers can build a carrier network with the kind of carriers he would want to contract with. And for a carrier, it would be about finding shipments from the shippers he's got in his network. So there are a lot of use cases in artificial intelligence that can be utilized in supply chain and trucking. If you look at Amazon, they use artificial intelligence in their warehousing. That's their day to day. And in the trucking industry, there are companies working on building artificial intelligence for automated trucks. Now, when we look at carriers and shippers, right, it's about building their network, building matchmaking for their shipments, and more on the driver side, it's about finding fuel stations, truck stops, and various other features, which currently is a manual work for them. A recommendation engine would be able to do that a lot better and improve productivity and efficiency.
Let me make a point on that. So I think the first part of this conversation is where does AI come from, right? It comes from data, and in the supply chain, the issue today is there's no network. The network is 97% independence, and so that's what we call the black hole, because there's no direct connection and there's no direct relationship. And in essence, then there's no direct data between the product movement itself, shipper, manufacturer, connecting directly to the truck that is actually moving that product is the core set of the data. So, you can't take input data and make it intelligent from a value proposition. Yes, you have data, but if you're looking at input data of performance, you first have to quantify if that input data is actually true. Did the guy get there at 8 a.m. that was input or not? And if you can't quantify that, then you are making intelligent data that isn't core real data, right? And so the first challenge in supply chain is actually getting to the core sets of the data, because this talked about last week's episode or a couple weeks ago that was talking about data. And this is the next level of that conversation, which is an enhancement of AI of the core sets of data. This is a carry-on from that conversation. And so if you're just looking at attribute capabilities from the supply chain that AI can do, we can list 100 on that board right now that is going to make supply chain more efficient. But in order for you to get to those 100 efficient uses of AI, you got to get the core data. And that's done by building network visibility and contractually contracting and getting the core data from the shipper manufacturer directly to the trucking company that signs the driver that actually works for him. So that triangle of a relationship is there, but then the core data is the actual driver that's connecting and communicating and then reporting that core data and restoring that core data from the shipper manufacturer. Direct.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up the point that, this was our topic of conversation a couple of weeks ago. And the main focus of that conversation was, is your data accurate? And so, Elvis, as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, data informs the algorithms, does it not? And in LaneAxis case, we store our data in an immutable ledger. Is that where the data informs our AI algorithms?
To build a AI algorithm or any sort of AI, data is the core. So the core set is the data. If you have bad data, the AI is going to turn out bad results. If your data is accurate and good, you'll have good results and good accuracy. So as an industry norm, this is where everyone would head to, where having a data stored on a immutable ledger, having data stored on a blockchain, and getting accurate records and feeding that and training a AI model is far more accurate and efficient than any human data that's input manually.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's really the key point to mention is the accuracy of the data and the fact that LaneAxis stores its data in that immutable ledger, so you can trust it because it can't be altered, manipulated, or anything like that. Now, what about machine learning? All of this kind of works in concert, right? Artificial intelligence, Web3 technology, IoT, explain how machine learning kind of fits into this.
Machine learning and artificial intelligence are the same thing. Now, machine learning have different algorithms that can be used to train a data set and a model to get a desired result. Now, you could, it's a trial and error, basis where you would take a data set, train it, and see the accuracy. Then you would use a different algorithm, train it, see the accuracy. And as you do this, as you break it into subsets, you would find the algorithm that needs to be used to get, a good amount of accuracy. So that, I would say somewhere about 80% and above accuracy is good to start. And then as you get more data, the accuracy, improves, increases to 90%, 95%, and so on. So there are different types, there are different algorithms that are currently available in machine learning. And reinforcement learning is something that's added on later on in the second phase. Once, your initial machine learning algorithm is out, your data is trained, you have users using it, then you take that and provide feedback to your current algorithm so it learns from it and it improves. So it's an ongoing process, and reinforcement learning is something that is now an industry standard.
Let me give you a use case to that description he just had. Okay, so from the network, what do we have? Well, when a trucking company registers, we have his attributes. 48,000 pounds, blah, blah, blah. And so that subset of that attributed data, okay, can then match with, because we're getting the actual manifest of the load that's coming directly from the shipper. So if that is 20,000 pounds, okay, and the size and everything else of that manifest load movement of the attributes, we know from his trailer that he has 45% available space and up to 22,000 pounds, let's say. And so in what AI can use in that particular use case example is it can start alerting the network, because we know where he picked up and we know where he's going and we know that he's en route. It can start alerting his available space, or even in advance before he picks it up, or even if he's en route. So what that does is that gives the truck, to maximize efficiency in his movements, a visible freight that today there's none of this going on. And so a truckload carrier coming out of Chicago that's headed to Atlanta, and he has available space and available weight that's alerting the network, and the guy in Effingham has 2 pallets that he can swing by, contract, negotiate, and then get paid directly from the network by utilizing efficient movements of full capacity that today, LTL carriers don't go to truckload carriers because they can't manage a relationship with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of. And so this, through AI and efficiency movement, is going to start leveling transportation into network visibility and allow network visibility to be able to efficiently use max capacity of movements that, quite frankly, are not being utilized today. And both sides in that underutilized example, the shipper's paying more through an LTL movement, and the carrier isn't making as much as he can because he has available space that he's not moving.
Well, and that also speaks to the big problem we always talk about, which is empty miles, which is 20 to 30 billion by most estimates, empty miles per year by U.S. trucks. So, AI is going to play a key role in reducing that number and hopefully one day wiping it out. So I think now would be a great time to actually pop up a graphic showing all the applications LaneAxis is using for AI. So this is a very impressive list. I should point out Elvis has been with us for 5 years plus, and really he's the one who's engineering all of this. But look at this list. It's basically 15 overarching categories with scores of subcategories. Network connection suggestions, which will show personalized recommendations based on all kinds of criteria. Suggestions for preferred carriers and shippers. Prioritize carrier bids, LTL alerts for bidding, auto-populate and finalize bids, view shipments, document verifications, shipment SMS alert service, LTL services, shipments bid, data analytics, driver recognition, shipment monitor, dashboard analytics. And then another big one is fueling. Which we've talked about before, and I should say we have an exciting announcement coming up in a little bit that we'll push out later. But let's talk about AI as far as it relates to our intelligent fueling program. Rick, why don't?
All right,
Elvis, why don't you take that one?
I'll add anything on that.
I think in the fueling stage, right, AI would be very beneficial for a driver because we know the mileage of a truck. We know how many miles that are on a shipment, and we know a lot of subset of data attributes that is available to us from a shipment and a driver. So AI could use it to be able to recommend which would be the optimal fueling station with the lowest price that the driver should go and fill his truck. Now, this would improve not just the time that he would spend on a shipment, but also the cost he would spend in fueling his truck, making his truck more productive and the shipment more efficient.
Yeah, so our mission is to build the independent network, and the power that comes behind that mission and our message to the independent carriers is that when you join the network, we're looking at the end of the week, if you have $10,000 of revenue, instead of having $9,000 of expenses, our goal is to have to where you have $6,500 of expenses. And that's done through the power of the network. And so in this relationships that we're establishing, okay, we want to bring him, efficiency through this network. So as an example, fuel, we're getting ready. We've partnered with, we already made an agreement with the fuel network that's going to give, as far as I know, the largest point of sale, fuel discount to the independent market, and with 1,500 plus fuel stations across the U.S. So the intelligence side of this is what we're doing within our capability is taking that information that comes in real time of the pricing, and then calculating that with the attributes that we know. So the driver can put in how much gas does he have now? A half a tank. Okay, well, based on a half a tank, that's different if he's on empty of when he needs to fuel, right? Or if he's full of when he needs to fuel. That intelligent data will tell him where he's going, and it will tell him, here is the best place to fuel based on fuel prices of where you're going with the calculations of how much fuel you have today. And what does that mean? Well, if he can find out the best place to fuel, and that place is at $3.80 instead of just fueling now at $4.20, well, that right there is 50 cents a gallon. And then you add in another 60 cents a gallon. Well, he saved $1.10 on his fuel compared to if he didn't have an intelligent fuel through the network, right? So what that means is that, well, now that's $250 basically, or over $200 of additional money in his pocket from fuel through data of intelligence that's giving him information that he's not getting today. And when you add that in, he might fuel 2 or 3 times a week. Well, now you're talking about $700-800 a week, or you're talking about, $4,000 or $5,000 a month. That's a truck payment. That's insurance. So that's the part that we're using intelligent data in all aspects of the supply chain, and really focused on the independent, because the independent today has no benefits from the network that they represent, which is 97% of the industry, right? That's actually doing all this, and they've taken all the risk. So with our partners, we're building a model that matches the industry and giving them value and utilizing what we do, which is we build systems. LaneAxis's core strong point is our IT team. These guys have been with us for years. They know what they're doing. They know supply chain, and they're brilliant guys. And we're using the systems and software intelligence to bring efficiency and build the network that's going to provide value to the two parties that's involved in this. That's a shipper carrier and a direct, but really providing value to the independent market.
So I'm glad you mentioned the experience of our team. As I mentioned earlier, Elvis has been with LaneAxis for 5+ years. So that's how long he's been developing our AI algorithms. So let me ask you, Elvis, when you started developing the AI attributes, did you know that the list we just saw, did all of those just come to you at once? Was this a progressive development of new features to add? And are there other further applications down the road for artificial intelligence in supply chain, specifically within LaneAxis?
Honestly, when I first started, trying to identify where, artificial intelligence could be used, it was very difficult because the industry is fragmented. There is no data available in the industry. And, it becomes really difficult to identify issues, problems, and get data to be able to solve it. So gradually, as we progressed, as a company, we started identifying problems, started collecting data, is when we were able to put this list together. And as we keep growing, there'll be a lot more features and functionalities that we would add, which would be powered by artificial intelligence.
Now, a quick aside, something interesting you said before we started the show here is augmented reality and virtual reality. Now, I did not think that those would have any applications, but you told me something interesting. What did you say about that?
Augmented reality, honestly, like the new Apple headset was launched recently in WWDC. That was the announcement they made. Now, imagine that on a trucker's head. He's able to see a map on his destination. He's able to look around and identify what he's passing, truck stops, fueling stations, all of that virtually. That it basically connects the digital world with the virtual world. Now add artificial intelligence on it, where he's getting prompts to do things, where he's looking at your real world and getting digital prompts on where to be, what speed to go, and how to reach his destination. That is powerful. Where it is very safe, it would give him assistance, and it's a very effective process.
Wow, that's fascinating. Can't wait to see something like that go online.
Well, now, let me add one other thing. So what Elvis and team are also doing is taking that to the next step, which is actually forecasting. So, when most of the load, when there's over 1.5 million loads on load boards every day, it's reactive. There's no proactive of that. They got to find a carrier right now so they can get the load moved. And in the contractual relationship, when they build direct relationships with shippers, they can utilize that to say, okay, I'm going to be in Chicago at this date, and then I want to go out west to New York area, and then I want to go south to Atlanta area. And having that visibility and that forecasting of his shippers in that area, in the communication in that area, he can start to even say to his network system, I'm looking to do this, plan my route, and let my network know of shippers that I'm going to be in that area. And now both sides have, through a physical world, but in a virtual reality, ability to communicate and have visibility of movements that nobody has any insight in today.
Yeah, and that's important to point out that our use of AI benefits all sides of the supply chain movement. In our case, there's really only two sides, the shipper and carrier, but it's really going to benefit both of them. Now, I do want to bring up one issue, and it's an issue that has come along with this explosion of discussions on AI, and that's the ethical use of AI. People talking about deep fakes and all that. I don't believe this is an issue with LaneAxis, but can you confirm that, Elvis?
It is an issue in the industry. When you're talking about narrow intelligence or general intelligence, there's not much of an issue there. But when you're talking about super intelligence, that supersedes human capacity. Now, AI is self-aware. They're able to make decisions by themselves, and there should be some ethical norms. I'm pretty sure governments around the world will put in regulations on building an AI, and that would come in the future where companies have already identified the vulnerabilities right now with building a super intelligent AI, and once regulations are in place, then it should be safe.
But is it fair to say within the LaneAxis ecosystem, there's no issue of
system right now? We wouldn't use any super intelligence. It would be general intelligence and narrow intelligence.
Okay, very good. Rick, anything else you wanted to bring up?
No, it's a very good topic.
Yeah, great topic, Elvis. Thanks for giving us a glimpse into that big, juicy brain of yours. It's part of the reason, a big reason, why LaneAxis is where we are. Thanks for joining us, Elvis.
Thank you, Elvis.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rick, and thank you for joining us for this latest episode of Let's Be Direct. Stay safe out there on the roads, and we will see you next time.